Hey everyone, this is smpratte, and it's time for the E4 Gary and Scott Q&A. So we're just going to go through these questions one by one and just give you our real-time answers. So the first question is from Muck, and they ask, where is the pre-release Raichu?
Yes, good question, Buck. The last time the pre-release Raichu was spotted was in the lake with the Loch Ness Monster. Just not that long ago either. So somewhere around the Loch Ness Monster, that's where you'll find a pre-release Raichu.
That's a quality answer.
What
right
do you
there.
think, Scott?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. The myth is more real than the actual card itself.
Right.
So yeah, that's where the pre-release Raichu is right now.
Yeah.
James K. Ray asks, I have two questions. To the most high-end collectors, when did collecting switch from being something you kind of collected? Man, James K. Ray, you need some punctuation. This is one long run-on. When did it switch from being something you kind of collected when we were all younger to something when you got bored? And okay, I think what you're trying to say is when did it become serious? And that's a question that I get a lot, actually, is like, when did it stop just being something casual? And it's funny you asked this because we did a couple interviews with each other, and that was one of the questions we asked. And I think it was like 2008 for me, like around there. I bought a Tropical Wind and a Trophy Kangaskhan, and that really, turned the page. I was like, all right, there's no going back at this point.
Yeah,
but that was probably
we did discuss that just the other day. For me, it was kind of a three-way deal because I started off kind of in the Pokemon business, and and so I took it very seriously at the time. This was at the end of 1998. And then me and my sons got into it. And as soon as they got into it, I became involved and got interested in it as a fun thing to do, to participate with them. And then they started getting to other silly things like girls, and it left me there where the interest didn't leave, and so I just kept on going, with the collectible side and enjoyed it. So
the moral of the story is from Gary is when you're at a crossroads between Lass and Pokemon cards, you choose the Pokemon cards.
Yeah, they would have been a lot better off had they bypassed the girl stage and gone straight into Pokemon and held on to it, and then they would probably be doing what I'm doing today instead of looking for money for dates.
So Deep Boy asks, hopefully a hockey player with that name, Scott, do you spoil yourself on the new sets of artwork, or do you wait to have the cards in hand? You always seem excited to see your favorite artwork in the newer sets. Oh, they actually have a question for each of us here.
Yeah,
personalized.
I'll get the second.
Okay. As for newer sets, I don't really spoil myself that much. I mean, I buy what I like. But you hit the nail on the head there with the artist. I really just like the artwork for the new sets because it's one of those things where you have probably years to really collect these things because there's so much out there. But yeah, I'm just kind of more of a casual person or collector when it comes to the new stuff.
Yes, and Deke asks me, if it wasn't Charizard, what other Pokemon would you collect? I just know you as the Charizard guy. Sorry, new to the site. I'm curious as to what other Pokemon you love. And thanks to both of you for all you do for the community. My all-time favorite Pokemon is Venusaur. And this will come up in another video that Scott and I did together. But Charizard wasn't and isn't my favorite. Venusaur is. And I believe I have, just about every Venusaur card, printed, and I have yet to see a bad artwork job on Venusaur. So, yeah, Venusaur is the guy for me.
There you go. So Mike asks, this one might be a little contentious. Mike asks, who would you say has the larger collection in terms of size and value? Mm-hmm. Which card or cards would you say are most underrated? What's the most you've ever spent on a card? Wow. I think for size
I won't remember the first one if we go to the third one or so.
Yeah, we'll start with the first one.
Maybe one at a time.
Yeah, one at a time here. So a larger collection, I think we were actually talking about this the other day in the car, how in Pokemon, like between us and other people, it's a great example how there's always opportunity in any hobby, because what Gary does is pretty much the opposite of what I do. Like, yes. He's the king of Charizards, hands down, and I'd be like the trophy king or whatever. And, they're two completely different camps, but we both found success in them. So I mean, it really would be tit for tat to be pick apart. Like, you know, it would really just become a pissing contest, I think.
Yeah, we were trying to figure out, you know, if we had kind of a meet-up mob dinner, who would be seated at the tables in the different categories of Pokemon. And David Person, he would be, you know, probably I think we discussed the English promo guy.
Mm-hmm.
Scott, definitely the Japanese trophy guy, and me, the Charizard guy. And maybe there's some other, you know, categories some of you guys are, you know, some of you guys could sit at the table with us for. As far as value, you know, it really is super close on what we have. And, you know, so I couldn't pick one over the other there.
I would actually say, like, yours is a good example of you have multiple cards that would add up to, say, a large amount. And there's a mixture of, like, liquidity in that, too. Because I think Charizard First Edition is, like, almost liquid cards.
Right.
Where mine are more like, okay, this individual card, like an Illustrator, you know, has a lot of value, but it's just one. So when you really put it all together, it's pretty even.
It's even.
Yeah.
I'll give the second part. Which card or cards would you say are the most undervalued? Scott, you want to?
There's a lot. I would say old school Japanese promos come to mind, like Masaki's, things like that. I think you're in the golden era of the hobby, unique artwork, unique release, and they're still super affordable. I think the prices are pretty similar to what they were like 4 years ago for a lot of that stuff. So I would say the old back Japanese promos.
Yeah, and there's quite a few undervalued. Anything that is glaringly so, you know, I just, you know, really don't think so. I don't see any that stand out. There's a lot of good, you know, good prospects, but nothing that is that big. I don't think. Maybe Shadowless, I think, but you know, they went up and then they kind of
settled a little
they
bit.
kind of settled, but then I believe those will come back up. But there's so many of them that I think are gonna come back up. One of my favorite is the no symbol jungle cards. Scott and I were talking about that also, and I've opened up dozens and dozens and dozens of those jungle boxes and never did open my own no symbol, but I have hundreds of them, so, which I got from other people, you know, from other places on eBay, collections, binders and collections, so they're around, but I never opened one. So I would say the no symbols are going to be, because you know you're getting all through the base, all the way through the unlimited, the first Shadowless and that, and then you go to the jungle and people are collecting the jungle. The difficulties of getting 10s on those first editions, and I mean, what's next? The no symbols is the next thing you can complete a complete holo set with.
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe I'll light on that. I'll go with that.
I agree with that. No symbols do fly under the radar a little bit. Next question is, what kind of scale were the base?
Oh, what's the most you ever spent on a card?
I think someone else asked that later on, but
it's fine.
It's fine.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
we scrolled down.
Yeah, I was going to save it for later.
Yeah, okay.
What kind of scale were the base set, fossil, and jungle sets printed on? Were there tens of thousands of boxes printed, hundreds? It's hard for me to get an idea of just how much product got out there. Well, I mean, in general, there's no exact number for any of this stuff, especially set cards. That's the thing I always harp on in my video, and I'm not going to stop beating the dead horse on that, is that people don't realize that these were items that were intended to be massively produced. Not first edition Shadowless, but when you're talking fossil, jungle base, because there's no first edition in there. So if you're talking unlimited, there's just no way to know. And that was the whole point of that product release, is that it's supposed to be as much to fulfill, you know, the demand. So
yeah, absolutely. The only thing I would add to that is I do remember and was a little bit involved when the base set first hit, and I know the initial plan was that, it's not going to give you an exact number, but it'll tell you the initial plan was that the Unlimited series, which included the Shadowless ones, was going to be about 10 times more than the first edition print run. So the print run would be, one box would be 10 of the Shadowless and Unlimited. Except it was so popular, it went way beyond that. There was still that small amount of first edition, but more Unlimited boxes came out, so that ratio would be a lot higher.
Yeah.
But as far as what they are, pinning down a number, impossible.
yeah, and like piggyback what Gary's saying is that back then WotC, or at least the rumor that apparently stemmed from WotC, was that the plan was every first edition print was going to be 1/10 of the unlimited.
Right.
And I think for base set that is pretty spot on, or at least it's the closest to that ratio.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, once you get into the other subsequent releases, it's like, okay, how much unlimited is really out there?
Right.
You know, I would say maybe Neo Destiny, it's pretty true to that, but like a lot of that stuff, it's like, I don't, you know, it's really hard to get a vibe for.
Yeah, and also Wizards, ever since when they lost the franchise, they weren't very helpful on answering questions like that. And you know, when we really got curious about print runs, they didn't even want to hear the name Pokemon because of the difficulties they went through in losing the franchise. So that's probably lost to history. You know, those kinds of numbers.
So Colors asks.
Colors, my boy. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Usually one of the most serious members on the forum asks, how much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? Who can say the phrase fastest without making mistakes? So you can go ahead.
Okay. How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood?
How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck?
I give up.
You won. I couldn't do it clean. I went for speed. You went for precision. You got it.
I want to hear Colors do that when he's not drinking.
Jake 1992 asks, "What's your top 3 favorite Pokemon artworks of all time?" Wow. God, whenever people ask me this, it's so hard to even pin down like 10. But I would say like a Blastoise comes to mind for me from base set, especially first edition. It's the nostalgia really with that. I would say the Illustrator because of how much experience I've had with it again. But yeah, there's so many. Like I'm thinking Uyama's Pikachu, Bilingual Executor. I really like Uyama's stuff. So yeah, that'd be my general answer for it.
After this recording is done, there'll probably be dozens that'll pop into our heads. But just off the top of my head, absolutely the base set Venusaur, you know, would be the top amongst the top 3. And then I love the Grand Party promo, and I love the Master Scroll. So I would pick those 3.
That's a curveball.
Right now. Yeah.
I would never expect Gary to like the Master Scroll.
Yeah, you thought I'd say Ponyta and Abra.
The Master Scroll is such a unique thing. It's just crazy because it's Japanese and new, and it's like, you know, that's definitely not the standard, but that's awesome. That speaks to the card, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, next one has a bunch here. So we'll just start with the first one. If you both could be a Pokemon, who would you be? Mewtwo?
Gary.
That's a better answer.
Gary or last.
Yeah. Last. Yeah. If you both could have any Pokemon as a pet, who would you want? I don't know. Squirtle, maybe. Yeah, Squirtle I'd go with.
Maybe Ivysaur.
Not Bulbasaur? Start in the middle.
Bulbasaur, let's say.
There you go. Yeah.
Let's say. Yeah, Bulbasaur. Let's start there.
You don't want to deal with the infant time.
But I wouldn't fall in love with them until they became Venusaur.
Oh, I see. Well, like a level 30 Ivysaur just
Okay,
right there,
yes,
right before
right.
it evolves.
Perfect.
Have you ever sniffed glue? No.
Quite a few other things, but no, not glue. Not glue. In my day, though, that wasn't that unusual.
Yeah. Do you think blockchain crypto will ever be used rather than having to give such a large cut to PayPal eBay? Yeah, I don't think so. Not, I mean, if you mean as ubiquitous as PayPal and eBay, absolutely not. No.
Never heard of blockchain. Don't know how to answer that.
So I think that says everything right there. That's the answer.
Got to be honest here with you guys.
Where has been the best place you have gone on a holiday, and what did you enjoy about it? Oh God, I think visiting my family in Italy because it's a unique combination of like history, beautiful scenery, food, and then also like the intimacy of like whatever being able to see family and kind of maneuver everything through them, like you know. So yeah, that's probably it in northern Italy.
I think in 1989. I spent a month in Singapore and spent just about the whole month playing mahjong and pai gow poker with the old Chinese guys down on the docks, and absolutely loved it. Great memories. And I remember going back, to the hotel and couldn't wait to get back down there to, experience that. So I'd say probably my 1989 trip to Singapore.
There you go. So next question is pretty quality. If you had the chance to acquire another PSA 10 versus Charizard or go on a candlelit dinner with Margot Robbie, what would you choose? This is definitely a trap. I think because I already have the Charizard, I'd go for the dinner with Margot Robbie.
This is actually a really, really, really simple one for me. I've never heard of Margot Robbie, so I don't know. That's a girl, right? Okay, I have no
For
clue.
sure.
I have no clue who that is. So I would probably pick her.
I think you'd be entertained. She's definitely definitely first edition last.
Actress?
She's definitely
Actress?
she is. Yeah, very
Okay.
popular and
I'll
other
take,
things.
I'll take her. Any way you can set that up? Just kidding, sweetheart.
So Zach Eggers asks, Scott, this question is for both of you, Gary. When you started getting serious with collecting, did you ever think you guys would be where you are today in the hobby? It's good. If I consistently add to my collection and don't sell anything, I never will sell. Do you think one day a guy like me could come even close to your travel? Thanks, Zach, or to your level. Thanks, Zach. Yeah, I never really thought. I still don't think about like levels or tiers or whatever. I think my main core is just I set a goal, or I think people underestimate how much I get engrossed in something. Like Gary can tell you, like he pulled out his classical guitar and I played for like 4 hours straight because I'm someone when I like something, I just get really into it. So I never really had like the goal or the tier mentality. So I mean, like we were saying earlier, there's different categories where you can find success or grow your hobby. So maybe there's one that we just don't know about yet. That might be an emerging thing for someone new to the hobby.
Yeah, I was pretty sure that I would last as long as the game did itself, because it played such an important part of my business life when it came out, and family life as far as sharing it with my sons. It was such a big thing. Yeah, I seriously thought it would last forever. Of course, that was just a thought. And then when it started dying down in those post WotC years, I was really sad to think that it was fading out. And then I thought I was going to do all I could to keep it going. And me and a couple other guys, would get together and really try to keep the hobby alive. And did I think I was going to end up here? Oh, absolutely not. There was no. First edition base boxes were, $88. Who was to think what would happen with, with that? So no, I didn't have a clue. All I knew is that I loved the hobby and I loved the experience all around my family and everything. So, no, I didn't think I'd end up, in the hobby, where I am today. It has played a significant role in my life for almost 20 years. That's a long time in a relationship, right?
Yeah. It's a lot older than some of the members.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
Shy Guy asks, what are your current collecting goals? That's a tough one. I would say I've been doing some new binder stuff. Like I already have like my Pokédex binder, but I'm doing like new set organizations. I'm going to try, like one I did the first Shadowless Unlimited. I'm going to try to do another one where I do first Shadowless Unlimited. Base 2000 all in one binder just to get new layouts. So that's really the main thing I'm doing right now.
Yeah, I'm pretty much simply want to build on what I love collecting. I love Venusaur the most, but I love collecting the Charizards. That's my favorite collectible, and building on that is my future goal.
Yeah. So next question by one collector asks, do you guys currently collect any other TCGs? Would you like to see another TCG be successful in the long run outside of Yu-Gi-Oh, such as Dragon Ball Super or another trading card game? Not anywhere near Pokemon. I mean, I do a little bit of Magic Vintage on the side, and we're talking slow, like very slow paced, but I don't. I saw some of those new Dragon Ball cards, like the ones with the, Millie showed me some of them, like I think it was the Secret Rares that had that nice texture to them. They look pretty similar to Pokemon. I do like that style. I think those are really attractive. But still, it's not anywhere near like the passion for Pokemon. So
And I go along with that too. Nothing even comes close, of course, to Pokemon, but I've collected a lot of TCG games, going all the way back to, the baseball from the 1950s and to the 1960s, the TV show cards and the Beatles cards, and you said besides Yu-Gi-Oh! All those games I had binders that I collected, and I completed sets. All the Dragon Ball Z earliest sets, I have them and collected them all. So, yes, I'm not just a Pokemon collector, but a collector at heart of just about anything, and trading card games, almost every one. I don't know if you could mention one that I don't have.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I can attest to that.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah. PokeNoob asks, question both of you, is there a missing piece in your collection, sealed product, or card just never were able to find? You guys have massive collections, but surely you still have something on your most wanted list. Looking forward to the video. That's a good question. I don't know off the top of my head. If I had to say regret here, like maybe not getting more of the EX era boxes, because I was surprised how quickly those just fell off the map. I think that's probably, if we're talking sealed product. But yeah, that'd probably be it for me. I don't really have a major hole or regret really.
Yeah, I do have very early regrets. You see the Japanese trophy cards, they were around much more in 1998, 1999 than they are now, obviously. I had opportunities. I had a whole bunch of those cards, go through my fingers, getting them, selling them, trading them. I didn't have the same love for them, and I didn't have the same foresight about what a monster growth they would experience. So I certainly have a big regret that I didn't dive more deeply into the Japanese promo cards, because maybe I'd be sitting here with Scott's collection, he'd be sitting here with mine.
Electrode asks, what do you guys think of the Diamond and Pearl era, sealed product, cards, etc., and which Electrode has the best art? Diamond and Pearl era is probably going to upset people who like that era. I do think it is probably the most lackluster, because there's nothing really that sets it apart. EX has gold stars, and even the EX cards alone, that's still the same concept today. Like, that's the original of the GX. So yeah, Diamond and Pearl was kind of like an experimental phase, like the level X stuff. So it's it was cool when it came out, because I got back when it was only Gen 3, so it was cool to see Diamond and Pearl release, because I'm like, oh, here's the new generation. So that's really all the feeling I have on Diamond and Pearl.
Yeah, and because I feel so much the same as Scott, probably best I, don't talk about it much. Let's just say it. I know a lot of people who collect them and absolutely love them. I don't have the same interest in those.
And for Electrode card, for me, it's just going to be base. That was my first rare that I can remember that I pulled from a pack, so the nostalgia is always going to be there.
Right.
For that.
Yeah, and I liked. Probably my favorite was probably the Jungle Electrode, the big one.
Yeah.
Not the
full centering.
Yeah, I'll say that.
So Mankurt asks, what did both of you get up to in Vegas? Do any more business, or was it just sightseeing for the rest of the trip? I mean, it was a mix of things. Yeah, saw some sights, went to some casinos. We talked a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Just, as you can tell, we're very casual. This is part of the collector, I think, mentality. Just lay back and whatever.
Yeah, we had a great time. We went to the Mob Museum, which told the history of the mob in the United States, and especially the significant participation they had in the growing of Las Vegas. And so the Mob Museum was pretty cool. I had never been there before, and Scott had mentioned he might have had a family member, that was a little involved. And so anyway, we discussed it. So we went to the Mob Museum. We've had some great dinners. Last night we had an excellent Italian meal. Tonight we went out and we're the only two white guys out of a ton of Chinese in a wonderful Chinese restaurant.
Yeah, it was authentic.
It was just great. I got pictures of Scott's meal.
I think the biggest.
He wasn't shy, believe me.
Yeah, the biggest takeaway from the Mob Museum was that photo you took that became a meme. all those memes were top notch. Like that Jurassic Park one was just quality.
You guys are absolutely crazy. You don't know how hard we laughed at some of those memes you made out of that. Keep it up, because I'm telling you, absolutely classic. You guys are great.
So PFM asked, are shipping charges real? I mean, this is a deep question here. This is, I think my whole philosophy agrees for this moment right now.
We had 5 to 10 pages of stuff on E4 about it.
And it's funny because Gary told me this thread, because I didn't get to see it yet, and he told me this idea. And then when he brought it up to me, I'm like, wait, that is an idea that it's like, when you hit a certain price point, it does become like Amazon Prime.
Right.
Where it's like, it's just the total price. Like, I think ultimately that is my opinion, is that I think the future market is just going to be Amazon Prime mentality, where it's like free shipping is just going to be ubiquitous in like 5 years.
Right.
For everything or most things. So
yeah, and for me it is always that way. It's always been that the shipping doesn't exist because it's all part of the final price I have to pay, and that's all I pay attention to. So yeah, I would say it doesn't exist. I'd say they probably belong in the same lake with the Loch Ness Monster as the pre-release Raichus do. But no, I mean, all you guys, voiced your opinions, and that's the great thing about E4. I mean, we got some great opinions, and I got to admit, a few times, some of you had me really swayed, about what I was saying. So, it's great that we discussed that in a gentlemanly manner, and there's, we're coming from different areas and different, experiences, so there's going to be different opinions, and that's the whole reason we're on E4, right? So, yeah, that was a great discussion.
So Elton asks, you know what it's going to be when Elton asks something.
Oh boy. My boy Elf.
Scotty Boy in Gaza, do you think my investment in waifus in the form of pillows, figures, and other character goods will exponentially grow in value, and how many body pillows should I buy in the next 2 to 5 years?
What in the hell is he talking about? What does that mean?
Imagine if one of these pillows was your wife. That's Elton's real life. That's Elton's reality.
Was any of that serious, or is it a real?
This is
Elton.
Elton.
A Pokemon thing?
No, he's.
Okay. No,
yeah,
that's funny.
Yeah, so 2 to 5 years. I don't know. I would say probably sell short. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about life.
Yeah, buy low, sell high on that one. I agree.
So Pro Chaos asks, so got a serious question now. Favorite ice cream flavor? Oh, all right. Pistachio. That's probably my favorite. Or what's the one? Pistachio, chocolate, strawberry.
I don't know.
Whatever, that one or pistachio. Let's go pistachio.
I'm not much of an ice cream eater, but the one thing I do like is vanilla with chocolate syrup, and then mixing it up. So I don't know what flavor you call that.
Yeah, that
because I don't like chocolate with chocolate syrup. I don't like vanilla by itself, but vanilla with chocolate syrup on it, I do like. And yes, I am a master malt maker. Chocolate malt using vanilla ice cream, carnation malt powder, chocolate syrup. I think we used vanilla bean recently, ice cream that was so good. Mix it in a blender, and yes, I've had a bunch. Scott has had a bunch of mine. He loves them.
Yeah.
So it's not really a flavor, but I love malts or vanilla with chocolate syrup.
There you go. Well, Spumoni, that's the name of it.
Spumoni,
that's the name of the ice cream.
Good Italian.
Yeah.
Yes.
Next question is, I have a question for both you guys. Where do you see yourselves in 10 to 30 years when it comes to collecting Pokemon cards if card values completely plummet close to the price of kitty litter? An unlikely scenario to happen anytime soon, but a good question. I honestly don't know. Kind of going back to the other one when someone asked this, or when Zach asked about the thresholds or things like that, or did you think you would be here? I don't really think that far ahead. I mean, it's just, I think it's safe to say I've always valued Pokemon, and I don't think that's ever going to change. If I would sell something, buy more, whatever it may be, I think I'm always just going to value Pokemon. So that's really that's my position, I guess, at the end of the day.
10 to 30 years, probably dead. I'm 64. 30 years puts me at 94. Yeah, probably dead.
In the other interview, I don't know which one of these is going to go out first, but the one where I asked Gary about his deal, he goes straight into death, like in the first 2 minutes.
Yeah, right.
Oh, man. So, Benoit asks, I have a question again for both of you. Do you remember the first card you sold? Ooh, what was it? Did you originally buy it with the intention to sell? Piggybacking off the same line of questions, what was the first card you bought with the intention to later sell? Okay, so first one I sold, God, I think it was actually those 2006 World Championship decks. I remember buying those when they came out, and I had doubles of like the Blastoise and the Lugia EX, and back then they were like $10 or $20 or something. And that was some of my first sales. I think in my eBay from 2000, I got on there in 2007, and I started to sell a few of those that I had doubles of. So I think it was those 2006 World Champions and Misakis. I think I had a couple spare Misakis as well that I did. So yeah.
You know, I can't remember the last card I sold. And that was just today. You know, I don't remember. Maybe those CD promos.
There you go.
could
Yeah.
call that me selling them.
Yeah.
Because I was involved in an overall sale with 5,000 CD promos, and so those sold on the home shopping networks here in the United States. So
Yeah, that's a
those
good
are probably, that was more of a business thing. Yeah. Besides that, I don't remember. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and then cards I bought for the intention to sell. Actually, those were just ones I acquired doubles of. I think, for example, like Misaki's, I ended up getting an individual, and I just bought a whole set. So it's like, oh, now I have these spares to sell. That was my game for a long time. Even to this day, I mainly sell things I only have doubles of. So
Right.
So yeah.
I would say. You see, I was never a top-notch seller. I was never a big seller. I saved. I sold for fun, and I sold, you know, to keep my nose, you know, in the business and keep my ear to the ground in that. But yeah,
Yeah. So, Jay City?
I can't say that I bought. I can't think of any I bought to sell. I don't know if I ever got a card intentionally to flip. You know, it must have happened at some point, but not that I recall.
Wise words. Wise words. Jason, he asks, at what? Oh, it's similar to earlier. What level or point of your collecting did you switch from the hobby to professional collector? For me, for as far as doing this mainly for like a decent amount of my income or just not having a 9 to 5, that was probably like 2011, I guess, around there, 2012 maybe. But yeah, it was incremental. It was gradual, and it got to a point where I remember I went in for like this typical out of college insurance job, and I left at lunch. Literally just walked out, and I was like, "Nah, we're not going to do this."
Oh.
So yeah, and if anything, it was a little bit riskier then, but still, I just didn't care. I would do whatever it took to just not work that 9 to 5. So yeah, 2012 for me, 2011.
Yeah, and I think for me, as far as Pokemon is concerned, it was probably 2000, 2001, when my son started to kind of get out of it, started getting other interests. Then it became less of a hobby, fun thing to do with the kids, and more of a thing to pursue myself. So I'd say probably there 2000, 2001, when my kids were getting out of it.
So Chris asks, this one's just for you, and I don't even know if you want, you don't have to answer if you don't want, but how many first edition PSA 10 Shadows base set Charizards and just Shadows PSA 10 Zards and sealed first edition boxes do you actually own?
Okay, yeah, I don't mind. I have 12 first edition base set Charizards. I have 11 PSA 10 base set Shadowless, and I have 9 first edition boxes.
Only 9?
Only 9, yeah, and 6 of them are in its own case with just half of the lid flipped.
That's
to see what's inside.
That will probably one day be $1 million in itself.
That
Those
is
9s.
probably my favorite collectible.
The boxes.
No, is the case of 6.
Yeah.
Because it's only half. You can't get a box out or put a box in with half the flap up. But that was just to make sure of exactly what was inside, because at the time I didn't know how to tell by the outside of the case what was
'cause it's
inside.
blank, yeah.
So I mean, I could honestly say that's my favorite. Were we asked that earlier? You know, yeah, I think that would probably be my favorite item, because I don't know anybody else with one. So that's kind of,
and I doubt you ever see
that's
one.
kind of cool, huh?
I doubt you ever see another one of those cases.
Yeah, except maybe by accident, and if any of you do, it's going to be striking gold.
Yeah, for sure.
Can you imagine?
That wouldn't even, that's scenario. We were talking about this today. That scenario would have to be so unlikely because a case, first of all, first edition base, even in '99, was just not a thing.
No,
like you couldn't get it.
Oh, you couldn't hardly find boxes
exactly.
in January of 1999.
Yeah, like I've run into some old school guys, like the perfect cocktail of events, the perfect storm to have, first edition base boxes, and they might have had 2 at most. Like
right.
2 is a lot. So the fact that you have 9 and a case is just like, it's just unparalleled.
Yeah, some of these guys are familiar with the Frank and Son show in Los Angeles, and that was that's the biggest show. It's Wednesdays and Saturdays every week, and it's been going on for 3 decades. And when Pokemon first came out, and every single one of the 100 booths had Pokemon, you might see one, and this you could figure this would be in April, May, the summer months. There might be one of those 100 booths that might have 1 or 2 or 3 first edition base packs. Even in the very beginning, you did not find a box.
Right.
You certainly didn't find any cases.
Right. Yeah. And then the other part of this is in regards to the Pokemon value spike increase 2016-17. What do you guys think about it? I'm sure you thought that the cards would go up eventually, but did you expect to hit aggressively with cards going up hundreds of thousands of dollars in a few months or more of a gradual increase? Since the spike, it's all been leveling out. Do you think another possible spike in the future is possible? For me, I don't think in these terms. I think, in fact, I have a video I need to eventually make, or in general, I think way too many people are overly worried about investing and all this nonsense. Because I don't think people realize that this only exists because people genuinely like it. And I can't teach people how to genuinely like a card. The market's created around genuine interest. So I think what happened with this is, yes, it was a mixture of Pokemon Go and 20th anniversary and all of this evolutions and all of these entry points for collectors. I don't know if it's good to think in terms of, is there another way to replicate that? Because I think it's just good to say, okay, let's just put this out there and create organic traffic and see what happens. That's always the position I'm in. I'm never in, do I think there's going to be another spike? Because I think trying to predict the future in that specific way is just a guaranteed failure, I think. I think there's too much risk in that type of perception.
I did anticipate the cards going up in value as much as they did. I didn't anticipate that. As far as reading the future, I think you guys are probably tired of hearing me say that as long as a Pokemon is in production, that it's going to be safe for 1 or 2 decades minimum.
Yeah. And
then beyond that, all of you are going to be there, and you're still going to love Pokemon. You're going to, want to collect them. So, as far as reading another spike, I don't think it works that way either.
Here's a good thing to throw in here for this question. I was talking to Rusty the other day, and one of the things people ask us is like, what would you do in a downturn? Like, let's say there's just a falling dagger. It's like, it'd be game time. It'd be game time because we all have much more consumer capital today than we did 10 years ago. Like in 2007 and 8 when these prices were low, like I personally couldn't spend as much. And today it's like I would just obliterate. If everything dropped to a 10th, see ya. It's like I would just take it all. It's like, and that's what Rusty was talking about. He's like, I'd be foaming at the mouth if this stuff went back to what it was in 2009. So the thing is that it's not some type of pie in the sky. It's like an inflection point would hit because there's so many people that have buy prices. And it would just be like, okay, this is where it's going to sit for now if it does decrease, which we're already experiencing for cards that are saturated. They're hitting inflection points.
As you know, I actually lived through that. From 2003 to 2006, it was dead, but I was stone cold, alive, and E. Birdman Eddie, was alive, and we, just like what Scott just said, we jumped all over stuff. We worked twice as hard during that downturn than we did before that. And I think today, and when that, today, if that were to happen, I wouldn't react any differently. I'd be all over it, just like Scott said. I'd be all over it, and just wait for the next wave. So,
yeah. So Hershey asks, Gary, can I buy 1% of your Charizards? 1%.
I know. Everybody kind of sees that as an unusual deal. It might be a little bit of an unusual deal in Pokemon, except a lot of you guys and a lot of people have gone 50-50 on stuff, I'm sure. And this is just, kind of a little something like that. But in every other kind of business, and with our friend Steve, the businesses that we've gone in together have been on percentage bases. This was really natural. This was a natural thing for us. Plus, he wanted to buy in more, but I didn't. I don't want to sell those. And so, how could I get my friend involved with me in it without me giving up anything? And yet he would be happy. And plus we've been in business with other things before, and we will be again. So this kind of, I know Steve's going to see this and that, but he also knows exactly how I feel about it. He bugged me for years to get in on my Charizard collection, just because he saw the interest I had, and as a friendship thing, he wanted in.
Yeah.
And that, and so.
Jim and Pokemon hit this on the head in Discord. I mean, it's something that's natural, and if you look at art, it's really a price point thing. Like if you look at artwork, a lot of those higher end pieces are bought by groups or holdings, like corporations or companies. There's people who just want to buy this. That's a mixture of individuals. So yeah, it's just I think it's new for Pokemon. It's good it's happening though in Pokemon.
Yeah,
because it's just a sign of, it's just another higher end deal to throw on top of the pile of the other higher end deals.
You don't have to have $100,000 to buy an Illustrator.
Right.
Maybe you can get together with several other serious collectors and friends and own a part of one. So you can own a part of one where maybe you could never own one by itself. So it's just another option, and it's an option that works as long as you do it right. If it's high amounts, you get contracts, which we did. We have binding contracts. As long as you do that, and you keep keep everything above board, and it's a great way of doing business and getting involved in something maybe otherwise you couldn't.
Yeah. Then Hershey asks me, why is chili called chili when it's really hot? The Discord guys just stay with the trolling.
Hershey.
But I think it's a chili pepper, right?
Yeah.
Chili pepper spicy.
Yeah.
And he asks, what's your favorite national park if you have one?
Probably Yellowstone Yellowstone. I would say.
That's a good pick. Alec Pokemon asks, what advice do you have for building friendly, mutual, advantageous connections in the collecting community? What about for building connections with collectors who live in Japan? Actually did a Patreon call today with Matt on the forum, and essentially the connection aspect of building relationships comes again genuine interest. It's like if the genuine interest is the core of it, and the more passionate you are, these things just happen naturally. If you're really just in the game, you're always engaged and always participating and communicating, do whatever, you start to develop an impression. Like certain members have an impression, like Elfton loves pillows. Like certain people have a vibe to them because of their level of participation, how they participate. So yeah, I would just go back to that genuine interest and engagement, and the doors will open naturally.
In the beginning years of Pokemon, it was extremely hard to build a connection or a relationship with anybody from Japan. They were very, very leery, very leery of us Yankees, and so although I did get one nice deal done, even after that deal was complete, and it was a very large one, my foot was out. I couldn't get my foot in the door again, and even though everything went right, there was nothing wrong with it. It's just that they wanted to keep it all amongst themselves. So I didn't really build very many connections. I think these days you have some connections, with
the Japanese. I think that's a good angle I'll throw in there. Not to be too controversial, but the Japanese are very, the most politely possible, traditional, borderline racist, and to the point where it's like I remember when I would see most of the same people every year at Worlds, and I remember one time they even were like king and like did these little like whatever finger thing and took a photo with me. But when you try to engage seriously and say, hey, let me talk to you about this card or whatever, it's always met with like politeness and then no follow-up. Unless one of them wants to sell, it's extremely difficult to build some type of dialogue with the majority of the Japanese players if you aren't from Japan. And if you are, I know guys who are American people I've known for decades that have been there since 1999, speak full Japanese, but there still is that difference in treatment. So it's a different game over there. And within the hobby, it's not an easy road, like Gary said. It's very hard to establish relationships with Media Factory. It's very hard to establish relationships with a lot of the Japanese players and serious collectors. So
yeah, really in stark contrast, if you had been in on Scott's and my conversations this last week, I mean, we were telling our deepest collectible and Pokemon secrets, and in other words, I don't think there was anything that we would hold back from each other as far as our participation, our interest in the hobby. Whereas that was totally different. Dealing with the Japanese folks, I had a chance to, like Scott said, they were very tight, very polite, but very tight-lipped, and very almost a little suspicious.
Right. Yeah. There's no type of engagement. Like when we just hang out, it's like we just talk.
Yeah.
And you just talk about whatever. But they're very guarded about information and
Right.
everything. So, Pierce asks, if either of you were given a role at CPC with the goal of expanding the trading card game player base while also appealing to collectors, what would you do? In this scenario, you have complete control over the Pokemon franchise, toys, games, apps, cards, tournaments, etc. The first thing I would do is daddy up on distributors. Whatever is happening right now at distribution, Pokemon needs to come in there and get that sorted, because they need to be more like WotC and just be super strict and say, this is what it is, this is the price, no BS. Make tiers for a quantity spent and how much to spend. None of the shell company nonsense that's going on right now. That would alleviate a lot of the pain for the business side, and I would just try to just continue. I think, to be fair, I think the playing side of the game is good. Knock on wood. I think it really is blossoming in a good way, but I think the only thing that cripples that is a distribution chain. I think that's the biggest turd in the pool for the player thing. But for collecting, it's tough. I would say promos. That'd be my go-to answer. Please, English, make something unique. That's Japan has loads and waves of unique promo cards, and there's barely any on the English side. So for the English, I think that'd be great to see some maybe event promos or some promotional items in line with something, maybe 4th of July Pikachu, holiday promos, just something like that. I try to roll those type of things out and just make it a little more fun for collectors too.
Yeah, the unique artwork item, we were talking over dinner about that, that cards, with unique artwork. It's almost like the English side of it is, just a little bit too lazy. I think Scott asked me this in one of the other videos. I didn't have a very good answer for it. But I would say that'd be one thing.
What are your opinions on the collectability and future value of the 100 Masked Royal promos and Zekrom Hyper Rare? So I don't know if you know these, but they're like Japanese exclusive promos. They're full arts. I mean, I think the one guy, the Masked Royal, is probably going to be, if you had to pick between those two, I'd say the Masked Royals would be more popular because I think the Hyper Rares are all the same. They all, that's one of the frustrations, actually, talk about the player side, is that it's kind of hard to see differences because they're all the same style. They all have that same coloration. So I'd lean more on the Masked Royal. Do I think they're going to be like old school trophies? Absolutely not. But I think the Masked one is going to be more popular out of those two.
Yeah, I'd pretty much defer to you.
You're like, yeah, whatever. Chuck asks, what is the longest duration time both of you had to wait for the next gold card to appear and obtain it? I'd assume for Gary, it's PSA 10 and BGS versus Charizard. For me, old school trophy. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty spot on. I think it took me about a decade to really get those Big 10 cards complete. So, yeah, I guess about 10 years or somewhere in there. 8 to 10 years, something like that.
Yeah, what Choate assumes is right. I mainly waited the longest for. I think the one that I've waited the longest for and still haven't achieved, and nobody has, is a card we were talking about the other day, getting in a PSA 10, and that's a pre-release Clefable. I have been after that. I think some of you saw something I posted that showed at one time I had like 192 of them or something like that, I think it was, and none of them were 10. None of them were 10. Were the ones that had an outside shot, didn't get it. So I've been that's the one I've waited around the longest for and still haven't gotten, and probably none of us ever will.
Yeah, I agree with that. Next question is, dear Gare Scott, how confident do you guys feel in the future of PSA 10 Jungle Fossil Common and Uncommons? Do you think they will ever catch up or near the value of graded base set common?
He means first edition, you think?
I'm assuming.
Yeah.
If he does, then
Right.
there's no way they're going to catch up to first edition base. Common Uncommons, I think they might have a little bit. One thing I'll say about Common Uncommons is there could be intrinsic value, meaning that, like, you know, because the cost of grading and the probability of getting a gem mint card is low out there in the open, but if you open packs, I mean, like $20. I can't. For me, it doesn't make any sense how some of these WotC cards, even Common Uncommons, PSA 10, are under $25 because you're basically just getting to the cost of grading and time and effort.
You're right.
So I think that I wonder if that intrinsic value will hit an inflection point, or the time value and cost will hit an inflection point like $40 or something, you know, over time. But
yeah, I would think kind of unlikely. If any of you are like me, I have tons and tons and tons of first edition Common Uncommon. I mean, absolute tons. And I probably have thousands and thousands that would get tens.
yeah, sure.
And if they ever did get hot for some reason, so many would come out of the woodwork and get graded that it would go right back
That's
down
true.
again. So,
Yeah.
so no, those I would not be investing. I would not be investing in those. That's for sure.
I would like to point out when you start the sentence with, if a lot of you are like me, no one has thousands.
Oh.
First of all, no one opened 50 boxes or 100
Well,
boxes. So.
That's true, but you've opened your share, I guess.
Yeah, there you go.
And you know, of course, the non-hollows are kind of pretty simple to get tens. You know, even back then with those cards, and so.
So next question, we got a couple here. What are both of your thoughts on the shadowless no damage nine tails? Can either of you think of a reason for why so many other air cards and PSA labels and they didn't recognize this one? Basically, they're saying they're frustrated. And then question 2, how much should factory lines hurt a grade? For question 1, they used to grade shadowless nine tails. We've both been this is one of our frustrations right now, PSA, is that they need an actual Pokemon expert, but they can't afford it. So we've both been in communication with PSA. I've spoken to multiple people there, and I've given them numerous, documentation. Unfortunately, you can't give them official because naturally an error misprint is not supposed to be there. So you can't say, oh, well, here's the official documentation, but it's tracked all the way back through Pojo, and it's just ridiculous that, that one for some reason got picked out.
Yeah.
I don't think there is really a rhyme or reason. I don't know why. Maybe something happened. Maybe there was some type of damage, some cost that we don't know about. Maybe someone did something, open a claim. I don't know. I'm just speculating, but
It's safe to say minimum 100 were graded undesignated. Why they aren't, why they don't do it now? It's kind of a a sad part of this whole thing. Somebody tell me what is the difference between a no-stage Blastoise, which they grade and designate, and a no damage Ninetales. I mean, it's just simply missing something on the card.
right.
And now I hope they don't decide to stop designating.
Do all of them. They hear this is like, oh yeah, we shouldn't grade any of
Yeah,
these.
take the Blastoise out. So you don't want to be too hard on them. But Joe, it makes absolutely no sense. It makes absolutely
It really doesn't.
no sense. They do need an expert, and I think he would be the one that they should turn to. With information on things like that. And I'll tell you what, Scott's opinion would be worth a lot more than documentation they would get from 15-year-old Wizards files or something like that. And also it's not dead yet. It doesn't mean it's never going to happen.
Right. Yeah. It could always come back.
A lot of us are attacking them from different angles. And hopefully at some point they will. When I got back my last Ninetales, and they didn't even grade it, I mean, I was very disappointed.
Yeah, his was actually sent in for him, and it was the same deal. Yeah, it came back ungraded.
Oh,
so.
I remember seeing that.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. He also asked the thing about print lines, and this is actually a good question.
Oh, yeah.
And he referenced Neogenesis. Neogenesis, in my experience for WotC, has the worst print lines. I mean, we're talking like that. First of all, I think the Typhlosion 17 is the most difficult WotC hollow to grade, unequivocally. That thing is such a pain in the
Yes, it
ass.
is.
I have probably an army of 8s and 9s. Like I probably have this many Typhlosion 17s. It's ridiculous. And one of the big things is the friggin' hollow, the factory lines. I have Lugias that are 9s that would be otherwise 10 that didn't have that line. So it is what it is. In my opinion, it knocks it down a grade.
I give it
That's
a
what it
grade.
is.
I give it a grade 2.
Yeah,
also.
I give it a full grade deduction for the hollow line. Pokemon Master asks, Gary, do your sons still collect Pokemon?
They do not.
Uh,
Nope, neither one does. They're 26 and 25 now. They're involved in a lot of different things, but none of them are collectibles. Neither one of them are collectors at all. And I wish they were, but they're not.
Earlier, go back to reference earlier in the video when Gary said they chose girls. They chose girls.
Yeah.
What
Yeah, they chose girls at 14. They chose girls at 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 25, 26. Still the same thing. They would almost have to meet, one of the Pokemon girls we had, to get them back into it.
If Margot Robbie was a Pokemon collector,
Oh, yeah.
everybody,
I guess so.
everybody rolling on 22s that way.
Uh-huh.
Gary and Scott, this is for both of us. What do you think the new Pokemon of our current time is? E.g., what is the current show or hobby that kids are loving now, and you think could be as big as Pokemon? Pokemon. That's the answer. Not even from a biased perspective. Like I say this in my videos all the time. I have friends who are teachers. I've even done this. I've even sent cards to kids, like a friend who has a friend whose kid plays or whatever, and it's just Pokemon. Like they're still playing and everything, collecting. Like one of the people I was talking to teaches language, and they were saying how you have to take these cards away, and I was like, you mean the GX cards? She's like, yeah, GX. They're always saying GX and EX, and they have to take the cards from them, just like we did in 1999. So, I mean, the answer is unequivocally Pokemon.
Yeah, Pokemon was not just a thing at the time. Pokemon is a generational collectible, and there is nothing out there, and there's been nothing since the beginning of Pokemon that you could consider could turn into something generational. So no, I can't see anything that's out there that could challenge that.
There's nothing even close.
There's no replacement. Absolutely no replacement. But somewhere down the road there will be. 10 years, 20 years, something else for the next generation. So.
Next question he asked both of us is, what's the biggest trade sale or purchase you have done during your time in the hobby? Sale, you might see a video eventually about a record sale that won't disclose yet. But biggest purchase, it's probably going to be a multiple together, like that I've, not one individual card, if that makes sense, but it's definitely a 5-figure number. I don't want to say it out of respect to the other end of the deal, the other person in the deal, but I mean, it's I would say it's similar to Gary's situation that you saw earlier. It's going to be one of those type of things. So
yeah, and my stuff has pretty much been an open book to all you guys, so you all know, what I've been into, and and so those are the biggest things.
And this one,
but I got to say, yeah, what Scott said, there is something on the horizon that is going to absolutely amaze. So
yeah,
stay tuned.
Yeah, it's going to be huge. Gary, or this is for both of us again. Do you keep an inventory list and value everything that you buy, and how do you keep track of it, and what do you use to do so? You'd actually be surprised by this, but for me, a lot of it's memory. Even Gary was surprised because he asked, like, what do you think my favorite Pokemon is? I was like, Venusaur. He's like, how'd you know? And I told him, I was like, you made a couple posts. And he was surprised.
He remembered like maybe 2014 or something. I said that. And he actually remembered one little sentence in one little post.
Yeah.
That I had said that.
Yeah, I think that's really the core of of my. And, I mean, I do have for the more valuable stuff. Yes, it is much more organized, documented, and things like that. But for we're talking like set cards or how many. Like on Discord the one day, somebody was like, "Oh, I'm looking for a Light Arcanine first 10." I was like, "I think I have one of those." So I just checked real quick. I was like, "Yeah, I have one. I have a spare one." It's like for stuff like that, yeah, it gets a little murky. But I'm on top of like 90% of it usually.
And I have the opposite memory. I have an absolutely horrible memory. I get up from here, go to the kitchen to get something. By the time I get in the kitchen, I totally forget what I went in there for. So no, memory does not play into my strategy at all. I kept spreadsheets for the first several years, maybe through the early to mid 2000s. Since then, I just simply, you can't really see over there, but I have, a good organizing system where everything is labeled in boxes and in proper categories and things like that. But I would have to go to those boxes and look at the cards, in order to answer a question about them. Yeah. So that's how I do it.
So Budget asks, too late in the game for memes. I'll give you some big ones. I'd like your opinion on Instagram and Facebook raffles and just the pros and cons of Instagram and Facebook marketplace. That's a really good question. I'll try not to be too negative because my opinion of social media in the hobby is not a good one. I think the largest amount of risk, the largest amount of just complete nonsense, immaturity, waste of your life is on social media. And that's for one reason. There's no regulations. As we saw with the ridiculous fake card people who, make these just cut and dry counterfeits and just do all this nonsense. There's no regulation. Like at least on E4, no, there's no site that's perfect. But the benefit of something like E4 is you have boundaries and you have insulation. Where on social media, it's just like you have so many clowns, so many scams. It's just such a waste of time. Unless you have, like, if I was in college still, I had plenty of time on my side, yeah, I might screw around a little bit, get on there every once in a while. But now it's like, absolutely not. Anytime I get on Instagram, it's a complete waste of my life. So with that preface, I think raffles are mainly for kids. I got a message the other day from a really nice kid who's like, hey, I'm 13. I won a couple booster boxes, which is crazy, in raffles. So I think that's the target audience. And with that said, again, it's Shade City to me. It's like, I just don't feel comfortable as an adult, like, doing stuff like transacting with kids like that. So I just don't have a positive opinion at all on any of it.
Yeah, I agree. It's more of I think a much younger person, type thing. My advice to those people would be, don't trust them. I certainly wouldn't. I wouldn't encourage anybody being involved in them. As far as the pros and cons simply of Instagram and Facebook as a marketplace, once again, very negative. I think Instagram and Facebook have a place of their own, but as far as being a marketplace, no, I wouldn't involve myself. I wouldn't recommend anybody else involving themselves. I know by the people that come to E4 and they send me personal messages all the time. And they say, well, I did this and this happened to me on Facebook, and they're so negative coming into E4. And I say, listen, this is a different community that can be, trusted trusted more so. But you don't find that, with the social media sites. So I'm like Scott. I'm kind of down on that as a marketplace for sure.
We'll try to bring it back up in the next question. Bring back up positivity. Silent Oath asks, hey Scott and Gary, now as we all know, each of your collections are both pinnacle points of this hobby, unique and not replicable. That being said, I really need to know, who is the real king of Pokemon? This is like the question earlier. I think it goes back to that thing of, it's like you can have the Starks and the Lannisters and whoever else, Daenerys, and we can actually get along. I think that's really what it is that Gary, I think, is the leader by far in the Charizard category. Like no one, he's an unequivocal Charizard king. Period. No, there's nothing you can say to that. And I think for me, it's the trophies but again, that's definitely a cornerstone, I guess.
Yeah. I think it's not a matter of size, but of respect. I mean, how can you not respect what Scott accomplished with his trophy cards? I mean, I know what he did in the mid 2000s. I know how he traveled to states and did what he could to build this up. So I more so respect the effort of what it took than what you end up with.
There you go.
I mean, if you talk about the king of Pokemon, I mean, that's people that affect me the most in a positive way, having to do with the hobby. Well, my new king of Pokemon is Beware, who made those memes that are just so hilarious. Scott and I together haven't had so much fun going over those, going to the imagination and as the fun side of the hobby, and that's really what it's all about.
Yeah.
So being the king of Pokemon isn't how many cards you got on your shelf. You know, it's not that kind of thing.
It's funny because I think it was Zuzu Ryan was college. He's like, I've been on the internet for thousands of hours. I've never laughed this hard in my life.
Right, yeah. That's keep that stuff coming. I mean, that's fun stuff. Maybe we'll get a E4 book out someday of E4 memes.
We're for sure gonna get that into a banner. I already talked to Shizzle. He's gonna work his magic and we'll get that at least into one banner. Next question: if I wanted to start a small-time eBay store in about 4 years from now, would I be better off building my inventory of great deals I come across until then, or just piling up cash? This would be a side hustle, not an income. Yeah, this is really specific investment stuff. So in general, I would just say you got to start small. If you don't have one of these things or all of these things, an immense amount of experience or knowledge, an immense amount of capital, or something, one of those two main variables, you cannot come into this head first. All the guys who really blossom like within a year, like I think PokeRev's a great example, Gem and Pokemon, things like that. They had a good amount of capital, and hopefully they don't mind me, using them as examples here. But either they had a side business already going, and they used some of that revenue to really upstart the Pokemon thing, or they had, let's say, a good salary or good income or something like that, and they used that capital, that excessive capital, to expedite the process. Otherwise, there is no shortcut. There just isn't. You can't get in a time machine and go back and buy cards 5 years ago and make exponential growth. And the answer, and the lesson there is, the only way you can really do that is being a collector. The ultimate answer to how to invest in Pokemon is be a collector. That's just really the ultimate answer for me. Because like when people keep saying king, like for me and Gary, it's like, why? It's because we're collectors. It's like the collectors have the highest margins, hands down. No one comes close. Not once I break out this video with that deal, nobody comes close, not even close. And so that's the takeaway: is just be a collector.
It takes a little bit of luck for sure. Except luck usually evolves from hard work. So put the work into it. My recommendation would be to observe. Watch what other people are doing. See how Ketchum, does his auctions. When does he start them? When does he stop them? Pay attention. Keep your eyes open. Pay attention, and certainly ask questions. Like you're doing here. But observe. What successful people are doing, and and you'll get there.
Yeah, it's just like with anything in life. Like, there's no shortcut that's going to be sustaining. There's a shortcut that might get you, okay, got a little bit, got lucky, but it's not sustaining. So you can't just take a shortcut for a permanent result. So yeah, you got to start small. I always suggest sell doubles what you have, get a feel for the market, and that's how you learn. Those real experiences are going to help you learn, and you just go from there. Ethan came in with the bonus round right after I locked it with the mod powers. He said, if I'm not too late, at what point do you think someone can call themselves a serious collector? That's a super good question. I think I think a serious collector is just a mentality. It's not even a price point or what cards you have.
Absolutely.
When people ask, like, when did I become like a serious professional collector or whatever, I was always a serious collector from the jump. Maybe there's like an intermediate whatever point there where it's like I didn't really know what I was going to do. Like, I didn't really know how serious I was going to go. But yeah, I think it's just more about a mentality, not really a price point or anything.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that completely.
Also, where do you see the high end?
Also, maybe you become a serious collector, when you consider yourself one, because that's when you're actually willing to do what it takes to continue with it. So.
One of the other questions you asked is also good: is where do you see the high end Pokemon card hobby in 10 years? So again, not going to tell you yet the historic deal on my end, but let's just say the video I put up with Gary was an appetizer compared to what this is going to be. So the high end market is something that is pretty much exclusive to the people involved, and why I've always said in my videos, set cards, there's always another copy, is not some type of feeling. It's a quantifiable metric in relation. Like while these people are like, oh, we're worried about the dip, we're worried about the movement. It's like the high end is something that is pretty much exempt from all that. I mean, the high end is really the only chart that goes like this, whether that's PSA 10 first edition base Charizard, BGS first edition base Charizard, Pikachu Illustrator, old school trophy cards. They truly are the only items, first edition base product, even this very rare sealed product, are the only items that move like this, period.
regardless of what the rest of the market's doing.
Yes, exactly. It does not matter. I think a good way to explain this is if tomorrow the Illustrator BGS 10 Charizard was $1 million. We'll just say that, okay? Why that isn't that outlandish is because there's only truly a handful of them out there. I mean, we're talking small amount, and the intersection of millionaires is much more probable for something of that value with that notoriety, popularity, and true rarity. So you are in a position where it's like all it takes is that one sale. And I realized this a long time ago with the Illustrator. I was like, people are sleeping on this thing. And I think the high-end market is basically exempt from the day-to-day grind.
And that would be whether it's your question as far as where's it going to be in 10 years. The same place it is now, the same place it's probably going to be in 30 years.
Yeah. I think the only thing that could really damage an actual hobby is if there's a massive downturn in the overall market. Like if you have a massive, and again, it goes back to the thing I was talking about Rusty, where it's like, game on, like let it happen, because you have so many people, myself included, that have a hoard of cash just waiting for a dip in the market. And I'm probably a small fish compared to people like Rudy and these other high rollers. So yeah, I mean, it is one of those things that I don't see the indicator, to change the trajectory.
And also the high-end market is always the last to be affected.
Yep. And Ethan's asking all quality here. Yes, he has two more here. So does the immaturity factor in Pokemon, e.g. rampant Facebook, Instagram scamming, non-paying buyers, fake card markets, impact Pokemon's ability to send as a major collectible? That is a very good question. I think there's a lot of nuance in that, so I don't want to overdo it, but in general, I would say it does to an extent, and kind of to piggyback off the high-end thing there, it does affect the high-end again. It affects the day-to-day. It affects the set cards. It affects the I think the new guys getting into the game that stumble into the wrong. To give you perspective, I get people who message me with their fake hyper rares. They're like, "Oh, someone bought this hyper rare Charizard for me, paid $50. It's a Chinese fake." So it's like, yeah, they're out $50, and it sucks. And I think that's where the fakes can make or break someone's experience. Maybe that put that person and gave them a sour impression, and they're like, "All right, I don't want to do this anymore." So that's my worry for the fakes and the immature nonsense that you see on social media, is that it deters people who otherwise would enjoy the hobby.
Yeah, certainly it does affect it. As far as stopping it from becoming a major collectible, it is a major collectible today. And no, I don't think it'll go that far, but it'll certainly, those things hurt the market terrifically. Scott and I were talking about a good mutual friend of ours, Julian, who was part of a scam, and he was a great collector, a good seller, and he was involved in a scam. And it discouraged him so bad, he immediately got out of the hobby completely. And this was a full-grown man, who had a major interest and a fun guy. And until he got that one big scam, and that was the end of it. So that one person leaving the hobby hurt our hobby. And these other scams and things that come through, if they hurt the younger people coming up, it's going to hurt. Every single one is going to hurt our hobby.
Yeah, and I would say it's at a point now where it is ultimately negligible. I don't think it's something that's like stage 4 cancer or anything, but you just want to nip it in the bud. Why we're so outspoken on E4 about it is because, it's very easy to be blasé and detached. It's very easy to meme it up and, and be like, oh yeah, whatever, I'm so sick of hearing people say fake cards are illegal. It's like, that's a very easy, non-committal position to be in that does nothing for anybody. So I think at the end of the day, why people are so outspoken is because we have these experiences where it's like, these are real people. And to finish that story, Julian's dead now.
Julian's dead.
He's fucking dead.
Yes,
and it's
he
like,
is.
and part of it was because of this acceleration of like his experience. It accelerated. I think he had a couple issues beforehand, but it's just,
this definitely put him over the edge.
Right. Yeah.
This did him in. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think that's why we take it so personally, is because we've seen this over the years where it does nothing. Yeah, it does nothing but harm. At best, it's an annoyance. At worst, it's something like this. But I think that's why we're really against the whole. We're outspoken about the fakes. And then also, Ethan asks, "Is there a way I could convince you to go to Worlds to hang out with people?"
Yeah, let's end on a high note.
Yeah.
Let's after that depressing thing we just went through. Yeah, I would love to go to Worlds. Go to Worlds to meet you guys. This last 3 years, I had a new baby 3.5 years ago, and so I was kind of a house husband, and so I was responsible for taking care of her. Now she's going to be 4 next month, so very, very possibly in these coming years I'll be there. And also, my suggestion is to get Worlds here in Vegas. I mean, there's no better to convention than here in Vegas, and then I'd be right down the street. So, yeah, I will certainly try to get there next time. And
home dad is also a synonym for professional collector.
Right? Yeah.
I wanted to say.
True. That's a good point.
So to close, one question a final question I want to ask Gary myself, I forgot to ask him earlier, is so if someone came to you and hit that buy it now on your Charizard listing, would you actually sell the card? Or if someone said, hey, I'll give you a full $1 million.
The 1.2 million?
Yeah.
Not a chance in hell. If some serious buyer came and hit the buy it now for 1.2 million, I would default. I've never defaulted on what I would default on that. I think I have it priced a few $100,000, above value, so I won't have to worry about that. But if somebody did, I would not follow through with it. No, I'm sorry.
It's funny because a higher end buyer who I've dealt with for a while messaged me and said, hey, can you ask Gary if he'd sell one of his BGS Zard and like a couple other items? And I was like, hey, I have someone that that really wants to buy these cards or whatever, really wants to buy these Charizards, and he's like, I bet they do.
Yeah, I bet they do. I bet they do want to buy. I don't mean to sound smug on that either. It's just that I can certainly understand their interest, but that's all it'll ever be. Because no, I wouldn't give those up for nothing.
And then one other question is somebody asked privately. This message I received: would you let Scott see your inventory at one point, the coveted Ark of the Covenant of your California storage locker?
Yeah, and my answer is at some point when I do show that off, it'll be to Scott. So is it gonna happen anytime soon? Well, first off, it's about 9 hours away from here, and we are talking about a 10 by 20 stacked to the ceiling. It's not only Pokemon, but the Pokemon is intermixed amongst everything, and that's my collection. That's the thing that's not here. That's the thing that's not on eBay, and those are the things that I will I want to take to the end, and so if I do, it'll be for Scott, and at some point maybe if they have Worlds in Sacramento, California or something, which will be close by to that, then we could do something.
Yeah, your locker just sounds like the Breaking Bad, money pile that they have. Breaking Bad, they have like millions of dollar money pile except it's Pokemon cards.
Yeah,
that's just what it sounds like.
I'll tell you one thing. I pay my bills for that locker.
Yeah,
I don't want to see it ending up on Storage Wars or something like that, because I'll tell you what, that episode would go viral.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be nice. But yeah, that's everything we have. I know this one was a little bit longer than usual, but hopefully this was entertaining. Apologies for the partly depressing topics, but sometimes the honesty just takes you there. But yeah, anyway, that is everything we have. Hopefully this was enjoyable, and I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah, thanks for hanging in there all this time. This was fun. Maybe we'll do another one.
Yeah, maybe we'll do something else here.
We have a couple more days. So
yeah.
All right.
That's it. Till next time, guys.